My name is Jimmy Low. As you can see from the title here, I want to discuss this topic with you because I think it's very important. I work from University of Greenwich as a learning technologist. So I've been helping colleagues, academics, and students to think about how to prepare for an AI-driven economy. But even before working as a learning technologist, I used to be a teacher. I led programs, I've taught programs, designed programs for professional bodies. And even before that, I used to be an employer. So the idea of employability, recruiting students and preparing them for the workplace has always been something that I have been working on and I'm currently working on. And I think it's very important that societies and firms, companies, industries, they're rethinking about how to use AI to change the way they do things. And university playing such an important role in society, I believe that's quite important that we think about that as well. Um, so just to go back over the past 15 months or so since the arrival of ChatGPT, there have been so many questions. I've been involved in so many projects, consulting students, formulating our AI policy, being involved in cross-institutional projects. There are many questions about which model to use. Do we have to sort of subscribe to a proprietary platform, design our own chatbot, how to ensure academic integrity, how to embed AI teaching literacy into our programs? So there's so many questions that I've been working with my colleagues. But I think fundamentally, the most important question underlying everything is how we prepare our students for their employability in future. Um, and increasingly, as I talk to our students, they're increasingly more concerned about not really about whether their content will be flagged as being misconduct of some sort, but they're more concerned about whether the skills or careers that they are focusing on will be future-proofed. I mean, are they going to find jobs using the skills that we are teaching them in the curricula and assessment that will still be relevant in the workplace in a few years to come? What skills are specific to humans? And if they have to work with AI without the technical know-how, I mean, what do they have to learn now to be prepared for it? Um, and very similarly, with my colleagues, academics and professional services colleagues, we are concerned regarding how do we future-proof education as well. I mean, what things do we have to teach as human skills, and also how should we redesign our curricula? And I should really say upfront, I really don't have the answers to many things, but I believe that this question is something that deserves our attention to think a bit more and to really think about how do we prepare our students to prepare them to adapt in a world that's thriving, well, influenced by AI. I'm sorry, there's a bit of noise out there. Okay, just would you mind stop? Great, thank you. Um, but to answer this question, this big question, I've been talking with my colleagues and industry partners. I think there are many more questions that we have to unpack. Um, if we are thinking about the job place, it's quite important that we think about what do employers want, what's happening in the workplace, how are firms being redesigned in order to cope with AI. Um, and if you go back to the data, the money side, a lot is going into AI. If you go look at the blue line, which is essentially a proxy of the money going into AI-related firms compared to the general investment universe, that's the yellow line. You can see the divergence starting from 2022. That would be the start of ChatGPT, and it's been doubled. The amount going, the money going into AI-related companies. And I mean, if you look at the growth rate predicted by Bloomberg Intelligence, we expect to have a compound growth rate on a yearly basis of more than 40% up till 2032 in terms of generative AI revenue. So a lot of money going in and people have great expectations. I think that's basically what's happening in the workplace. And in terms of how big is the impact, some would say that up to 40% of global employment will be exposed to AI. And some of the exposure would be risk related. Some people would benefit from it. When it comes to the timeline, it will be in 3 years' time. In other words, I want to think about it in terms from a sense of urgency, because we're still thinking about how to deal with AI, but maybe our programs and modules have to change a bit faster, because I mean the students that are studying at university right now will be entering into a workplace that is fundamentally changed by AI, and that's going to be for all occupations, especially for knowledge workers. So if we go back to the content being shared by the Coursera speaker this morning, I mean, knowledge workers, white collar workers, they're impacted. If we refer to the number of, or the amount of hours affected by AI, according to Accenture, most of the developed economies will be heavily impacted, and especially the UK, close to half of the working hours will be impacted by AI. And in terms of the industries that will be impacted, I think these industries like finance, business management, technology are the programs that have a lot of students enrolled onto them. So again, the sense of urgency is going to happen soon. It's across industries, and UK as well as the developed economies will be heavily impacted. Um, but even though there's great expectation, we expect things to change quite radically. Things are not really happening yet. We're still in a relatively early stage. If you go through the BCG research, most of the CEOs are adopting a more like a wait and see approach. So they're not really doing things yet. They're observing, they're thinking how to change things. And one of the reasons, well, I mean, they are quite dissatisfied actually with the progress of using AI. And one of the reasons is that there's a lack of talent and skills. So, I mean, that somewhat resonates with the things that have been shared with or by other speakers today, is that there's a need for rescaling and upscaling. And university certainly plays an important role here to ensure that the AI transformation or the fifth industrial transformation can be supported. And even in the UK, research show that a lot of businesses are not really seeing how to apply AI into their workflow, into their strategies and businesses. So we're still at an early stage, which means that university can also help to shape how things are going to transpire. And also one sort of impediment to AI adoption could be a mistrust of AI. So people are not really confident in using AI content. There's the issue of hallucination. And yesterday, the European Parliament just passed the AI EU Act. So I'm certainly underscoring the issue of trust of using AI. And there's so many things being discussed in the workplace. So I'm just trying to present a picture here that there are many conversations regarding all these topics in the workplace, and it's quite hard to focus as I or my colleagues try to advise our program leaders and also industry partners, what should we focus on? We're trying to jump to changing assessment and curricula, but without knowing what's happening in the workplace, in the job market, what's needed, it's quite hard to think about what to change. Um, I could somewhat boil that down in a non-systematic way into four main areas. So perhaps we can focus on the AI capabilities and development. So weak AI, strong AI, the models, what they can do, the context window, and what have you. And perhaps also looking at the impact applications. So chatbot use cases, management strategy, so how to deal with ethics, the money to be invested in, the kind of firms that should be redesigned, and of course, work and transformation. How do we streamline or automate workflows? How to be creative and innovative? How to upscale and reskill our workforce? So these are the sort of broad areas that I'm trying to discuss with my academic colleagues. Now we know that AI is not a fad. There's going to be change, but it's yet to come. So what skills do employers want? I don't have the answers, but I'm just trying to seek advice during the Q&A session. But I think we should also think about the kind of decisions that should be made in the workplace. So what decisions should remain human-based, and what can we delegate to machines? And under what circumstances should we think about collaborating between human and machines? And that's something that's a bit new, which means that there's a lot for us to think about in this area. Another dimension to look at the skills that are required would be what belongs to human, what belongs to AI, and also how do the two interact, and how do we augment ourselves, and also how do we improve the quality of AI output. I think there are many discussions around such topics that we don't really have the answers at the moment, and things are keep changing so fast. But I'm just trying to think about the framework for us to have a more informed discussion. Another way to look at it, I think the Coursera speaker this morning also covered is perhaps looking at the areas that are more prone to automation. Perhaps some of the areas like data analysis, creating content, scheduling, writing are more likely to be automated, but there are still areas that are more human-centric, if you will. So empathy, social perceptiveness, and etc. So these areas, do we have to focus a bit more on the human skills in the curricula, and also think about how to work with machines in the tasks that are likely to be automated. So we're having these discussions as well. Um, Also, it's worthwhile to think about how firms will be changed and how we can create value in future. Just using something that's quite commonly used when it comes to analyzing the activities of companies. I can see that in all areas that are undertaken by companies, human and AI can work together, but there are certainly areas that human are more excelled at. So intuition, how to make sense, or how to make sense of the workplace, the culture. But we also need to have machines to inform us of the data so that it helps us to make better decisions. But it's a good idea to think about the different areas and activities that firms take or undertake as we redesign curricula in our programs. And also, as I've said before, one of the hindrance to AI adoption would be mistrust. So, because if we can augment the value of firms using AI, also the risk will be augmented. So there's a need for us to think about how to provide students with the skills to manage the threats raised by AI. So how do we think about the leadership in the world of AI? Regulations, a very timely topic, and also ethics. And perhaps in different programs, we should really think about how to help students interpret and understand AI output, how to integrate those output into the human knowledge system. Many academics and colleagues tell me that, of course, regardless of the models that they're using, the content being generated are quite generic. The nuances, the esoteric content, they want that to be also embedded into the human knowledge systems. And how do we do that in our programs? Ethics, I mean, how do you assess AI content? They could be biased, they could be highly dangerous. And what do we have to provide students with in order to enable them to review and evaluate content? And also how to enhance our cognitive work, how to make us more creative. That's something that we should also use AI for in our teaching. And it's very difficult because we have like 3-4 year programs for undergraduates, and how do we cover everything that would be needed? There's so much, if according to Sam Altman, there's so much that we have to think about to prepare students to be ready for the AI world, and to ensure that they're so versatile, even there's a prospect of a $1 billion company. So if that's a possibility, I mean, how do we ensure we provide a sufficiently holistic education to students so that the value in society can be maximized? So what kind of human skills, AI skills, and AI human collaborative skills do we have to prepare them within the span of 3 or 4 year academic degrees? And because technology is so accessible to everybody, I mean, I don't come from a technical background, but I can certainly do coding, image generation, video generation with the diverse tools that are available now. How do you differentiate ourselves? Perhaps another AI leader would say, Jensen Huang would say, we have to really teach a bit more in terms of the depth of the topics, the domain problems. But then again, if we have to think about the versatility of the program, and also thinking about the depth, the domain problems to teach, how do we cram everything in? And I really don't have the answers to all this, but it's quite important that we think about these questions. And going back to the original question, what should we do in this age of AI? I'm just going to quote Kissinger and Eric Schmidt here that we don't really have the answer, but we should be ready. We should be prepared to adapt and cooperate because things are changing so fast. And I mean, this is the fifth industrial revolution, some would say, and it's quite different from the prior ones. And things change very fast, and we have to be more responsive than before. I'm just going to suggest some of the conversations that I have been having with different colleagues in the university setting. Um, Many program leaders are emphasizing on how do we know that things in future will still be relevant. We won't be able to predict everything, but it's quite important that we think about what's the future of work. I mean, how are firms going to change in industry and societies? And it really will have to rely on the subject matter expertise, but they also have to be prepared for the changes that are made by AI so they know what's affecting the disciplines. And we should have sort of further discussion with them from time to time. And also think about the distinct human skills. I mean, what are human values? How do we ensure and uphold those values? Um, how do we work with AI? How do we prepare students with the necessary level of AI literacy? How do we change our curricula, our pedagogy, our assessment? I mean, if we as educators have to help our students, we should be prepared for it. And how should universities upskill and reskill our colleagues? And that's something that we have to work on as well. If we have to make sure that students become more versatile, how do we work with different disciplines in our programs? And of course, we can't prepare our students forever. And with the advancement of AI, how do we instill a sense of or a culture of lifelong learning in our students? And also ethics, responsible AI, making sure that everybody has access to sufficient AI knowledge and know-how, work with industry partners, and to keep continuously evaluate our programs and adapt. And it sounds a lot, and it certainly is. And there's so many difficulties I feel that we're facing in our context. For instance, it takes time to change our program, and there's such a big time lag, but the technology is changing so fast. And also, companies and industries are also changing constantly. And how do we make sure that we keep pace with such changes? And I would like to seek your advice as a community of experts. And it takes so much time to work with AI, and they don't get things right, and we don't get it right how to work with them. But personally, I still believe that even if AI excels at the things that we want them to do, there are still new things for us as humans to create more value, which means that there's a need for us to think about how to better prepare our students and make sure that our programs are increasingly or more future-proof. So I just rambled for quite some time now, but thank you so much for your attention. I hope that was sufficiently clear, but I look forward to your questions and comments.